wait a few more minutes, or should we get started and I can admit them in after?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started, and then I think we have a quorum now, don't we?
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. Well, then I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody. One of you want to do roll call for me, please?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Will Toogood,
Here.
Stacy McMahon,
Here.
Alex Scale,
Here.
John Robertson.
Present.
All right. Roll call complete. You have a quorum.
Outstanding. Thank you, Sarah. I don't believe we have, I don't see any members of the public. Does anybody else? Nope. So no public comment tonight. Consent agenda, meeting minutes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second? Anybody? Anybody?
Since I wasn't there, I don't think I can say.
Oh, sure, you can.
Yeah, I can? Okay, well, I read it, so I'll second it.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? All righty. Are there any changes to the agenda from anybody? Any requests for changes? Don't see any. Next on our agenda is election of officers. Why don't we hold off on that till the very end and circle back to that, and let's dive into the board input on goals.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. This is going to be, I'm excited to have this conversation with everyone and spend some time talking about the department goals for 2022, 2023. And as an advisory board, your input's important to help guide essentially what we're looking at that aligns with our council goals. And in that full agenda packet, we did add, or I did add the council goals so you could see how we were aligning some of our department goals with the council goals. And tonight the objective is to take a look at the goals that we provided, discuss them, support them. And then I have a hunch we'll spend a little bit more time on goal 6, which is to prioritize our capital project list for 2022, 2023. And so that's where we'll take some time, but I'm going to share my screen really quick and go through a presentation to help guide us. And I think, can everybody see the mountain? Perfect.
Yes.
All right. So the objective tonight, we're going to discuss and seek input on the department goals for 2022, 2023. And I'm going to quickly just update you on the overview of the council goals, just to remind us, what are we working towards? What's the council working towards, and how do we align? And then the department wants to seek your input, the overall draft of the department goals, which were attached in the agenda packet. And then we'll spend some time at the end prioritizing the capital improvement project list. And I would like to emphasize that this is the list with the department that we're working. This isn't the CIP that was in the adopted budget. So this is what we're working on as a department and getting your input as an advisory board. So real quick, the council goals, and again, you can find these in your agenda packet as well as your Parks and Trails manual. So number 1, plan and provide sustainable infrastructure. Number 2, be proactive in managing and planning for growth. 3, foster economic recovery and growth. 4, update council policies and rules. 5, maintain financial strength and sustainability. 6, collaborate with regional and community partners to address homelessness. 7, engage the community on community issues and in celebration. And 8, expand recreation opportunities that align with community needs. Okay, so real quick, there are 6 goals that we submitted as drafts, a draft for the Parks Board to take a look at. And I'm just going to review these really quick, and then we'll go through them one at a time. We can discuss them or support them, and that's when I'll open it up for discussion. So number 1, support department efforts in moving forward the next phase of the community campus project. Goal 2, continue to work with development services on several different projects, and that list of projects were in the expanded draft goals. Goal 3, initiate department-wide cost recovery work. Goal 4, develop a formalized policy and process to recruit, train, retain, and celebrate volunteers. And then goal 5, build upon and expand the existing pesticide policy to create a full integrated pest management policy. And then goal 6, provide input on the prioritization of the Parks and Recreation Department's capital improvement list. Okay, this will be the fun part. So this is where we get to discuss, and I'm going to try to change my view here so I can see folks. So goal number 1. Okay, so that's support the department efforts in moving forward with the next phase of the community campus project. And I'm trying to change my view, so if we want to discuss, I'll stop sharing and then I'll go back and share when we talk about each of the goals. So, okay, goal number 1. So the background on this, so in 2016, Sandy purchased the property that's now known as the community campus from the Oregon Trail School District. And the full site is 14 acres. It includes the Olin Bignall Aquatic Center and the Old Cedar Ridge Middle School. And from June 2018 to May 2019, the city opened, operated, and maintained an aquatic center. A couple of years later, April 19th of 2021, the council requested that a pool exploratory task force be created to evaluate options to provide the recommendation to council regarding the future of the Olin Bignall Aquatic Center. The exciting news is their work is about ready to be completed, and that draft will be made public in a few weeks here, and it will be discussed at the March 5th council goal setting. And so now the next phase is building upon the work that the Pool Exploratory Task Force completed, and that could potentially be a conceptual design for the whole site, including the aquatic, recreation, community needs, and potentially site development design, construction documents for future park amenities. You ask what goal that lines with the council? It's 8A. That's the goal. Appoint a committee to guide the next steps for the community campus and aquatics. The timelines this year and budget implications right now would be the cost to take the process through a request for proposal. And then there's a policy decision that needs to be made by the council to support the funding that moves it forward. So our recommendation as staff is that as a Parks Board, you advocate for the department to continue these efforts to move forward into the next phase of the community campus process. And this would also include evaluating and prioritizing park improvements. Okay, so goal 1, I will open it up. Dawn, do you think that's a good way to do it? We'll discuss each one and talk about support versus edit and just go down each of the 6.
Yeah, if that works for you, it works for me. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
Rochelle, I don't know if it's pertinent, but just a question. Are these in any sort of ranking? The 1 through 6 is just random, correct? Okay.
Correct. Yep. Good question, Will. Yep.
You know, I think that the nice part of this goal is that it is a direct reflection of council goals. I think council has made it abundantly clear that this is one of their, and Lori can chime in on this if she wishes, but I believe this is one of their highest priorities as far as, you know, what they want to see as far as facility development in the relatively near future. In my opinion, it's a massive project for a community the size of Sandy. Both the fact that it's expensive, but just the broadness of its scope itself. So it's not something that's going to, you know, certainly be built overnight. But it is something that I think the community itself is strives towards, or has striven towards. Not sure if that's really a word, striven. But I think that what we can do to help facilitate that, to help push that forward, I think is very important. I'm glad to hear that the resolution on the aquatic facility is kind of coming to a head, from what I gather. And I look forward to reading the final report on that. I also know that there has been some discussion about the need to bite it, you know, put it into bite-sized chunks, the overall project, whether it's the outdoor facilities or the indoor facilities or the rehab of the what's referred to as the bunker building or whatever the final plan is. I think that's about the only reasonable way our community will be able to move forward with this in a rational way that's affordable for the community. So I personally am very supportive of this goal. I'm very excited about this goal, and I encourage us to continue our support towards it.
I have a question, and the question is there a specific end date that they have in mind when it would be up and operating, or no?
At this point, Stacy, they don't. There's a lot of process to go through before we get to that point. And this is one of those first steps in that process would be moving it forward, public engagement, the conceptual design portion of it. So involving the Parks and Trails Advisory Board along the way. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the only comment I have, well, a couple actually, is in supporting Don. This is huge, and with large opportunity comes, you know, a lot of risk, and I didn't have a full grasp on the size of this project until I moved the 1st of January into this. I live about 3 blocks away now, and I've been walking it quite a bit. And there's nothing like a site visit to open your eyes. So if you guys haven't actually walked the property, I'd really encourage you to. This is big, and I like the bite-sized chunks. When I look at a project, I'm in project management. When I look at a project, I look at over a long period of time. It can be quite overwhelming, but when I break it down into bite-sized pieces, I find it a lot more palatable. But yeah, if you guys get a chance to walk the property, or if you already have, that's the only thing I had to add. Thanks.
Yeah, I can say the same thing. I've walked the property many times. My son used to take swimming lessons there a long time ago. I love that you're tying it into the goal, you know, the council goals, and the bite-sized chunks is really manageable. It's easy to want to support this. It's huge, but it's easy to support it. There's a need for the community, and I think as Dawn, you made a point, or Will, I can't remember, but the way that we can manage it to make it affordable as well will be necessary for it to move forward. So I'm excited to get community involved. So easy for me.
Heck, welcome. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, bike-sized pieces. I guess I was wondering if the infrastructure, if there's a schedule for, you know, what parts of the project are going to kind of be prioritized first, like infrastructure, the aquatics, you know, the buildings that are already there, or is it going to be the outside portions, or are there bite-sized chunks being taken out of the whole area, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Can I tackle that one, Rochelle, a little bit?
Absolutely. Yep.
So if you guys visualize the campus there with the pool, the front building will actually have to be demolished. So the engineers felt that it would cost too much to bring that money up, or that building up to code. And so the bottom building, which is what, surprisingly enough, is the one that I would have thought would have been unstable, but it's the better of the 2 buildings, is the building that we can still continue to utilize. And so what we've been waiting for is to start demolition of that building until we knew what we were doing with the Oleg Bignall building. And so kind of getting an answer on that pool and the facility there before we moved on the other. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit. And I mean, the scope of this is big, right? There's all this outdoor space as well. I'm excited about it because there's a huge chunk of that natural area there. Mm-hmm. And that obviously isn't going to need as much development, if any, but the football fields and the lower, like where the track is and everything. I'm assuming there's potentially plans for that in the design as well. Not just leaving that as is. So
yep, and a lot of that's in the Parks and Trails master plan, and then in the community campus plan as well. So yeah, and as far as a decision on, you know, a lot of this has been hinging kind of on the outcome of the pool task force. And so once that information is available and out, you know, which I would assume is going to be right after March 5th, then a lot of those questions we can start kind of hashing out.
Any other questions or thoughts on goal 1 or overall?
I think just from listening to folks, I think my impression is by consensus, I think we're pretty supportive of this project. Before we move on to the next, I see we have Tiana has joined us.
Can I introduce Tiana?
I wish you would.
I would love to introduce her. Tiana Rendell is our parks crew, one of our parks crew, and she is wonderfully enthusiastic and taking on a lot of different projects for us. I've had the great privilege of getting to know her these last 3 months that I've worked for the department, and her enthusiasm for the parks has, she's raised her hand and said, can I represent parks during these meetings? And I was like, absolutely. And so we'll see Tiana's face frequently, and when there's some parks questions or different things, I might toss it to her, but I'm just absolutely pleased that she's going to be joining us for some of these meetings. And during the director's report, I have some exciting news that also is focused on Tiana. But yeah, so that is who Tiana is. So thanks for joining us, Tiana.
Thanks for having me.
Tiana, really excited to see you. Welcome to our little group here. And
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you out in the park one of these days.
Me too.
All righty, Rochelle, shall we get back on schedule there?
All right. So goal 1, I have support. Okay, let's talk about goal 2. So goal 2 is to continue to work with the development services on several projects. And these projects include updating chapter 17.32 and 17.86 of the parkland and open space codes, which we're in the midst of. And if you've had a chance or did your homework from the orientation and watched the October meeting, the code did go in front of the Parks Board. And so we're continually working towards that as one of our goals. We're also working on updating the parks system development charges and the fee in lieu methodology. And then lastly, working with development services on removing duplications of trails that are also found in the transportation system plan and the Parks and Trails master plan. And then by removing those trails, we'll bring the Parks and Trails system master plan back in front of the Parks Board for a review, but then we'll amend that Parks and System Trails master plan, which will then be, when we update the codes, it'll directly point to the updated Parks and System Trails master plan for to meet some of the clear and objective standards that we're working towards in those codes. So yeah, I mean, as far as goal alignment, it's 2C, which is update the development code. So that's what we're working towards. And budget implications in this case, once SDCs and the fee in lieu are updated, this will directly affect revenue for the department, which is great. And I would ask that the Parks Board advocate for this in support of the code changes and the results of the SDC fee in lieu findings and methodology, and then provide input and recommend to council to amend the Parks and Trails System Master Plan once we're ready for that. So I will open it up for discussion as far as support or editing and questions.
Anybody have any questions? I have a comment. Can't happen fast enough. This is one of those things that as we update our SDCs and our fees in lieu, that's, you know, my understanding of the way the budget is set up, the SDCs are directly, primarily the monies that we are using to develop our facilities. And the fees in lieu is how we purchase property when we go out to buy it. We're leaving money on the table. And I believe that if you were to take a look around all the different communities around us throughout the metropolitan area, we're probably down there in the lower 25% as far as what we're charging for systems development charges or fees in lieu. That's why I'm excited to get this caught up, get it going so that we can get some both development and acquisition. I know that, you know, for a small community, we have a number of park sites, but we don't have a lot of larger park sites. And we don't have any developed sports fields that we, you know, can call our own. So it'd be nice to be able to achieve some of those things, some of those long time projects that have been kind of out there, and also be able to you know, kind of build towards the future a little bit, so that we can start moving forward in the implementation of the overall projects that we have. So that's my comments. Anybody else have a comment? David, I see you've joined us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I will mark that one supported, and I took notes on your comments, Don. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, okay. Any, before I move on, any final thoughts? Otherwise, goal 3. All right. Goal 3. So initiate department-wide cost recovery work. And to date, the department has not initiated cost recovery analysis or goals. This work would include in hiring a consultant who would guide the department through analysis and recommendations. And cost recovery work will result in public engagement, which would be input from the Parks and Trails Advisory Board, and eventually the council, resulting in department cost recovery policy and the creation of a department-wide master fee schedule. And this would be in alignment with goal number 5, which is maintain financial strength and sustainability, in particular A, which talks about diversify revenue sources, analyze new revenue streams, and look at cost recovery where possible. So this would be hopefully this year, 2022, 2023, we would start to tackle it. This approach is a virtual cohort report approach. So our consultant, along with the city of Sandy and 3 other cities, would go through cost recovery work together, where the consultant comes in, analyzes our budget. Again, we involve the public in philosophical discussion about the budget, and we set cost recovery goals based on policy. And then the amazing team that I work with, we get to manage our projects and our goals based on those cost recovery metrics. So we would ask that you support our pursuit in cost recovery work. And this would include participating throughout the process, providing us recommendations about policy, and actively contributing to the discussions focused on philosophical budgetary questions, which will lead to a more sustainable and fiscal responsible budget management. And so I will end there and open it up for support, edits, comments.
I got a comment. Doesn't paying another salary kind of defeat the purpose of cost recovery? I mean, what is our deficit in regards to how much the salary is going to cost annually?
Mm-hmm. It would be a one-time consultant fee of $6,000 to $7,000. So it wouldn't, if I understand your question correctly, David, it wouldn't be adding an additional employee.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought this was a full-time employee that you were talking about.
Just a part-time consultant.
What's the length of time you want to engage with the consultant? Like what does that look like? Your relationship with them and working with the other cities in order to figure out their recommendation versus, our involvement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, good question. So we, the work is scheduled to last 6 months. And it's a phased approach. So phase 1 is the data gathering and analysis. And then they, along with this consultant, they do provide someone who comes in and helps us analyze our budget. As with all projects, depending on the other cohorts, it ideally 6 months. It could potentially last. I had gone through the same work in Oregon City. And by the time we had public engagement, the advisory board input, policy creation, it ended up close to about 10, 11 months, but the consultant's work was done after 6. So. Mm-hmm.
I got a couple of thoughts on this one. Laura, you're still with, okay, good. You're still there. I see you. I too have some experience with these processes in my past history. They are not particularly easy, and they are certainly not always comfortable. They're not comfortable for staff. They're not always comfortable discussions for the community. It can be a little awkward from time to time, but they are absolutely critical. My comment to Lori, my suggestion for Lori would be, while this is a parks and recreation goal, I can't stress enough how important it would be for the entire city to take a good look at implementing this process across all functions of the city. You know, there's a lot of cities that are involved in a lot of different fees and charges. Some of them are ones that 90% of the community never see or are never associated with, except for when you're, you know, maybe buying your house, you see a little line item that says, you know, the plat approval was this amount or one thing or another. It is so easy for communities to get behind on what the true costs of what they're doing are, and then not necessarily increasing their fees to keep up with those costs. Or if they don't want to increase their fees, at least have a rational way of explaining to the community why they're being subsidized. You know, not everything has to break even. Not every swimming lesson has to pay for itself. Not every building permit has to pay for itself, but you better have a good rationale why they're not. And the importance of this kind of process, while it's not fun and not particularly comfortable, allows you to dive into those kinds of things and have a community-wide discussion on what our community is supporting and what our community is not supporting. Parks and Rec has a lot of fees associated with it. And sometimes it's as simple as being able to have that process to establish those fees. It says, here's the types of costs we're going to cover. We'll do all the direct expenses. We'll do the instructional expenses. We'll do the facility rentals. Those are the things we'll charge for, but maybe we won't charge for the overhead, such as advertising or insurance or different parts along that line. But at least it lays it out for the community so they can understand what we're charging, why we're charging it, and how we derive our fees. So that's why I support this project.
How long does the consultant's information last us? Is it like an ongoing learning curve, or is it information that we use years into the future, or are we 2 to 3 years down the road, we're going to be repaying that $6,000 or $7,000 and trying to do it all over again?
Now, ideally, this sets up the process that allows us to do it internally from this point forward. It establishes the formulas that need to be updated, that would be updated by staff to include things like our costs of labor or the cost of materials that go into the different things. So it becomes a project that lasts for a long, long time. It's not a once a year consultant kind of thing. It's a one-time consultant kind of thing that lasts for multiple years.
Then I've got no issue with it. I'll stand behind it.
Excellent. Anybody else have any comments regarding that?
I have a question. You actually answered a whole bunch of my questions because this is not this is not an area that I'm very familiar with at all. But I was wondering if it was just the Parks Department that was going through it and not all the other departments. And the other question I had was, is the Parks Department going through it because we've noticed it, because there's been deficit, there's been, gotten into a little bit of fiscal trouble, or is it just being proactive, knowing that we haven't kept up with the fees?
The goals are, yes, is best practices to understand what programs are we subsidizing, and part of cost recovery, and this is part of the fun, but what Dawn also alluded to, which is a little bit of kind of a reality check, is when we're providing services to the community, are we supplementing or subsidizing individualized benefits at a rate that's fair, or are we subsidizing community special events at a subsidy rate that's fair? So it really exposes where we're using taxpayers' funds for the services and programs as a department that we're providing. And ultimately what will happen is we end up with a continuum that will paint all of our services and programs, and we actively get to participate in it together to talk about which services should we subsidize at a higher rate and which services should we subsidize at a lower rate. And it's a very transparent mechanism to communicate with the community about how we're spending and where we're spending their money. So
To answer the other half of your question there, Peck, my experience has been that once the Parks Department does it, generally every other department starts doing it too. And it just is a smart fiscal practice to do, and it in a way that is logical and explainable and defensible. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of things and adds to the overall financial strength of the community eventually.
all right, I hear support for that one, unless any other final comments.
I was gonna say, I support that, so.
Will, how do you feel?
I'm a consultant, so I'm all for it.
All righty.
Okay, moving on to goal 4. Okay, so develop and formalize a policy and a process to recruit, train, and retain and celebrate volunteers. And one of the things that we've been talking about is a team, and the team has done an excellent job up to this point, but volunteers are a vital part of the department and the city. And in order to continue this great work, we'd like to build on a process that we already have, and we have a good Carol works magic. She recruits volunteers, but it's time, we're looking at formalizing this process. And so we'd like to ask for support from the advisory board that this is a goal for 2022, 2023. And for council goal alignment, this is 8D, which is explore council and community recreation service needs and determine how organizations can support this. Because of our volunteers can extend beyond Meals on Wheels delivery. We're looking at parks and trails, and the list goes on, special event, your volunteers. We would ask that you support these efforts in formalizing this process. And are there any questions or discussions on this one?
I have just a comment. When I first moved to Sandy, Rochelle, I talked to you when I met you face to face about volunteering. I came from Phoenix, and they had a whole park steward volunteer program where you worked hand in hand with the rangers. And the way that they had it set up was so amazing. And I think so basically what you had to do is after you put in 10 hours of volunteer work, you got your park steward shirt, and then you could wear that anytime you were out on the trail. And if someone saw you with that, they knew they could ask questions. So I just think it would be awesome to see people like that out at like Tickle Creek or Sandy River Trail. And it was an easy way to get people out there talking about the trails and informing about leave no trace and all of that kind of stuff. Pick up your dog poop.
That's great, Stacy. Thank you for that. That would be, yeah, that sounds great.
I do. I like that idea a lot, the t-shirts, the t-shirt brigade. I do have a question. I have some experience running volunteers, and the bigger and better your program gets, there's also staff time needed to organize that. So my question is this something that that staff time to run the volunteer brigade, is that just going to be rolled into existing staff, or will it, do you think, require a new person or extra time or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. At this point, it's rolled into existing positions that we have here. Mm-hmm. So, and then after we do our cost recovery work and we're using in-kind, maybe we'll have the opportunity later down the road to bolster that program even more through hiring, but that would be down the road.
I've been researching IPM programs, and I know that's a goal that we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. But in the research, I've been finding that people have been using volunteers to help with the weeding and the removing of invasive species around towns. And just bolstering and supporting the IPM in that way as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tiana. Support for this? Thumbs up?
My thumbs up.
Okay, thanks, David. Great. Okay, so then Tiana teed it up perfectly for us. The goal 5 is our build upon our existing pesticide policy to create a full integrated pest management policy. And complementing the previous work that the Parks Board has done on the pesticide policy, which was codified by council, which was great. It was a good foundation and a starting point for us. But the next phase will help build the department's basically cultural approach and environmental support and sensitivity approach to pest management. And it's going to rely on some common sense approaches. It'll talk about a strategic way to manage public spaces utilizing a wide range of tools, which include mulching and application of pesticides. If this project moves forward, our fearless leader is here in the meeting with us, Tiana, who's very passionate about this, would take this on, and we would run some of this. The policy would come through the Parks Board first for comments and eventually to council for codification. And that would be Council Goal 8E, which is incorporate biodiversity into our parks and green spaces. And so this would directly relate to, again, some of those cultural aspects and how we manage our parks and open spaces through this integrated pest management policy. And questions, comments, support, edit?
I have a comment, and it goes along with what Tiana just said. So part of an integrated pest management would include something called EDRR, which you've probably come across in your research, Tiana. That's the early detection rapid response. So having a bunch of volunteers that not only are actually doing the actual physical part of the, removal of invasive species, is you want a bunch of people trained on what those invasive species look like and that they can spot them. And with everybody carrying a smartphone around, it's so easy to get people to drop a pin where they see things. And then you can, it's way easier to tackle those populations when they're small. So that's my 2 cents, and I support that.
I support it completely.
I'm on board.
I support it, and that was one of the things that as park stewards in Phoenix we did, was the invasive species removal.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm in support.
Great. Okay. I've written support onto goal 5, and so we'll move on to goal 6. And this is the one that's going to be take a little bit of time, and you're kind of going to be an experiment for me, because I'm going to rank and we're going to look at our project list. So let me share with you my screen, and let me tee this up a little bit. Can you see all this fun green colors here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the same list that you had in your full agenda packet. And this is talking about some of the goals that things that have been brought to my attention for the 3 months that I've been here, and future capital improvement projects that we would like to work on in 2022, 2023, and to receive the Parks Board advice on prioritizing this. And the green, I highlighted those because there is funding attached to those goals. And we can talk about these individually. And where you're going to be kind of an experiment for me is I'm going to rank these while we talk about it. And I don't know if that's going to be how that's going to work, if it's going to be mass chaos, if we want to, how we want to do that, or so you'll kind of be an experiment. We'll see how this goes. But so this is our list that we want to talk about. So let's just start at the top, and it's the community campus next phase. And we threw this on here because it will be a project that eventually down the line will, there will be a request for proposal, and there are some funds at this time that are dedicated to some of the aspects of that process. It is, again, something where if we support this, it ultimately goes to the council for a policy decision because they advise or let us know how we and where we should spend our money. So that has ended up on this list. The second one is the shelters and bathrooms in parks. And I'll just go through this and then we'll just take a second to rank it and see if that works for us. And if you have another idea, feel free to interrupt. I'm willing to try something else. But so explore options and funding for a restroom at Bornstead. So staff's responsibility, if this was at the top of the list, would be identify funding or possible grants to do this work. The same thing with Tupper Park. Explore options for a new playground and possibly daylight the creek and fix drainage issues. Again, we would identify funding or possible grants to do this work. Meinig Park, we have park improvements to possibly include electrical, heated bathrooms for a year-round use, parking lot pervious asphalt restoration, and there are bits and pieces of this currently in the works. We are, again, to Tiana's credit, she's done a lot of research on pervious asphalt, and so we are working towards a solution for Lake Meinig. We have affectionately called the parking lot when it floods. And then it would be other things like the electrical, and we would also need to identify funds or grants to do the additional work at Meinig. Land acquisition, so we'd identify land based on the master plan, and then this would include identifying land adequate for future multi-purpose sports fields. There are some funds set aside for land acquisition. Deer Point, this is a phase 1 concept, so it's a basic trail, benches, and dog station. And a couple of things to note about Deer Point is in the master plan, based on preliminary reports, this project would be approximately 66% eligible for SDCs, which means it's scheduled, or it's estimated being about $1.4 million for the full thing, which means as a department, we would still have to try to find $476,000 to develop that if the estimates in the master plan are close. And the other thing is this could change as the SDC methodology is updated and as we move forward with that. The other consideration to this goal or this list is currently this process or this project is being reviewed by council on February 22nd because the Planning Commission did deny Deer Meadows subdivision application, so they're appealing it to council. The concept in the master plan includes the piece of property that would have been dedicated to the department. So although this is a good one, it's on our list, there are some complications that do come along with it. So we have Sandy Bluff Park. So we have dog park improvements, not dark park. And this could include shade or shelter in the dog area, reconfigure the entrance to the small dog park and adding a kiosk. And this is to Sarah's credit, we do have some funds that were raised for this project specifically in the amount of close to $20,000. Community garden repairs. So this work will include repairing the planter beds and possibly incorporating pollinator gardens. And there are some dedicated funds for this work in the amount of $5,000. And we are working, we have started the conversations with development services about partnering with them for some pollinator gardens. And Shelley, who we've been working with, has mentioned that there might be some additional funding out there available for it. So trail from the community campus to Sandy River Park. So this is a trail between the community campus park and the Sandy River Park. And again, I just can't say enough wonderful things about Sarah. She secured this grant. We celebrated it last time, but it's there for us at $35,580 was the total estimated, or the estimated project was $48,000, and she received a grant for $35,000. So we are expected to get the notice to proceed sometime late spring or early summer for that trail development. So I'm happy to open it up for discussions. If there are some that are just to this group are obvious, let's start with number 1. We could work our way backwards and start at number 9 if we want to do low-hanging fruit first. Dawn, do you have a preference as the chair? Do we just open it up for discussion and see how it goes?
I'm fine just opening it up for discussion and see how it goes, but whatever works best for you, whatever gives you the best information. I know that it's hard to prioritize or to rank priority on a lot of these things just because Some come with funding already, some require funding. And so, it makes it a little difficult to, take one that doesn't have funding and maybe slip it ahead of one that does have funding. I also think that we have to be a little realistic with the community campus project. I know that's, as we discussed earlier, that's such a big goal of the council. In my mind, that's going to be should be one of our top projects too. So those, as far as, how to proceed with this, I'll leave that up to you to facilitate that discussion.
Okay. And then maybe this will help in the decision as well of the group. Like if the group identifies, let's say restrooms at Bornstead, what I will do as staff is go out and explore grants, report back to this group about funding, and use this essentially as sort of my guiding North Star for this next year as far as projects and where we're spending our time and looking at some of these capital projects in our facilities and parks. So I can go down the list, and I don't know how the group feels as far as just prioritizing the ones that are in green that have funding, if we want to make those all goals 1 or 1 through 4.
So maybe it would help me, Rochelle, if you define what the ranking would mean, and let's just talk about the funded ones. If they were 1, 2, 3, 4, how does that play out? Who takes action on it first? I guess I'm not understanding how the ranking plays out.
Yeah, if we prioritize, I would reasonably think that the team would be able to tackle probably 5 of these projects. And so, and it could be one of those things where if we're really ambitious, we're hiring staff, we get additional staff, then we would know if we got to number 5, let's go to number 6. And so that's how I would be using this moving forward with the team.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rochelle and Don, can I point out one that's really standing out because of something that happened today?
Sure.
Okay, for the Sandy Bluff Dog Park one, I was there today with my dog, and before I went, I was looking online to see when it was closed for cleaning to make sure I wasn't going during that time. But what I came across was a review by an older person that used a cane that was saying how it's hard for that person to bring their dog there because of it's the steep incline when you walk in. So today when I went in, I paid attention to that, and when you walk in, there is a kind of a really steep incline. So if we're thinking about accessibility for everyone, that might be something, I don't see it on the list under details, but that might be something to add to the dog park.
I think that's a great catch.
And Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about what you envisioned for this project? Because I think in the past you've mentioned that to me, which I thought was a great addition. So.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I don't know, Stacy, whether you went in the west side entrance or the east side entrance. Both of them have some accessibility issues, but the one that is the most dramatic is the one into the small dog park area. That is really steep and it often gets muddy. And so the previous park board had discussed this as well as the need for some shade in that area and agreed that we needed to do some things for there. And we have raised some money. We originally went out for an RFP for the shade portion, and based on our initial vision for that, it came back really expensive. We didn't have enough money for that. And at that time, the dog park area wasn't qualified for SDCs, but with the completion of the new master plan, it now does qualify for some SDCs. Since that time, we've looked a little closer at the need for better accessibility throughout the park, as well as the shade, and have come up with sort of an alternate plan. And if you're familiar with the dog park, there's the big open area where technically the larger dog area, medium, larger dog area, and then there's the smaller area for, I'm using my hands like you can see them, the smaller dog area. And then there's if you're facing the east and you kind of look to the right, there's an area of the dog park that doesn't get a lot of use. So it's kind of to the south of the small dog area. southwest of it. And so there's an opportunity. I talked with Joe. He and I met over there a few times about the possibility of adding some fencing along there, moving or adding an entrance that's a lot flatter into the that new area, which would access the small dog park. And it would also give us a multi-purpose area. A lot of times people have a need to separate their dogs, or if there's a dog that's new to the dog park or is recovering from injury, it just gives us another area. And that, you know, that's been part of the vision as well, but it would meet the need to provide better access for everybody into the whole park. That was a long description. Feel free to throw any questions at me. As far as the shade goes, we've moved in terms of our vision, and we'd love the Parks Board input on this. The original idea was to shade that whole seating area, the whole amphitheater area, but that's a really big space. It's expensive, and it's also a wiser decision to put in a couple different shaded areas, smaller shaded areas, and move people, disperse people around the park. One of the things you don't want to see at a dog park is everybody kind of congregating in one area when it comes to safety and dog behavior. So we've modified that original vision and are thinking of multiple shade structures, just smaller than the initial vision.
So I have an idea. So I'd heard this was important. We can do 1A. Dawn, you had mentioned the community campus. We can do 1B. So we know that those are some of our top goals so far. Do we want to,
maybe, Rochelle, maybe an easier way to look at it would be to kind of put it into 3 tiers.
okay,
And say, okay, well, this is kind of our top tiers, maybe and just kind of cherry picking here a little bit. Don't, you know, thinking out loud. I guess if we looked at maybe the green, all the ones you have highlighted in green as being like a first tier project, second tier maybe would be more of the land acquisition. Last time I checked, they don't make land anymore. So when we get opportunities, we should be buying land. If we're going to be developing any parks of size that can accommodate things. And then the third tier would be more of the longer term, you know, community improvement kinds of things. The restrooms, for instance, at Bornstead Park, or the rehabs at Mining Park might be more of a third tier. Recognizing that there might be sections of those that can get moved up, you know, depending on funding or maintenance needs. But I think it's just a little hard via Zoom, at least in my mind, to kind of come up with, here's our number 1, number 2, number 8, number 9 kind of project. So maybe breaking it into thirds might be a nice, easy way of, or 3 tiers might be an easier way of looking at it.
If I could throw my 2 cents in here, I'd say that we need to make Mining Park the highest priority. It's the largest park used next to the dog park, I would say, and it's the one that needs the most work is for restrooms, especially in wintertime. And then you also got, you know, Lake Meinig that needs to be taken care of as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the tiered approach, Don. I'm gravitating towards the ones obviously that already have funding. I feel like those can, you know, if we have to raise more money, we can we raise more money, I think. But if we have funding, I think that to me, that's common sense. But I hear what David's saying. I'm always there at that park and I get it. So that really stood out to me as well as being very important for us to maybe zero in on, is raising it up a little.
There is a lot to be said about protecting the investment, and the
Absolutely.
community made a huge
yeah
investment in Mining Park, and we don't want to not protect that investment too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's great about like doing the other work for, you know, possible grants for some of the other things, but I don't think that's as high a priority. I'm not itching for a bathroom yet across the street. So, you know, it's kind of like, oh, what do you do? But yeah, I'd like to be able to protect what we already have, But then if we have the funding for the other things, I think those are big glaring at me. Just my 2 cents.
So my opinion, and I hear what's being said about Meinig and other projects. I'm of a little different theme in that I'm looking for opportunities for people that are further away from that park, so that we're developing other opportunities. Like that's a well-established park, and there are a lot of people there. But what about the other places that are underserved? So, I mean, I see the community campus as number one. I can't get my eyes off of that one. And again, the funded thing. So, I mean, if we can handle, and I get the tiered approach also, Donna, sorry to switch gears here, but if we can, if we can handle 5 in a year, and we've got 8 here, shouldn't we be trying to pick out the 5 and ranking those, I guess?
Sure.
But anyway, I mean, if it were me, I'd be looking at that one. And the reason that believe it or not, the last one appeals to me quite a bit is that to get from that neighborhood over to the Sandy River Trail is going basically all the way across town, well, all the way lateral town from one end to the other, basically from Meinig all the way over to Bluff Road, and then down to Marcy Street to access that trailhead, rather than coming straight across from Meinig down already a trailhead right there to the Sandy River Trail. So it opens up the access from both ends of the city. So I see that as a big opportunity.
So Will, I'm sorry, just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, do you want Meinig to stay at a 2, or are you interested in a prioritizing?
I mean, if I had to pick 5, Meinig wouldn't be one of them.
Okay. Let's see, we've got 3, 4, 5. Do we want to grab one more that we would, that could be our 5th?
Oh, sorry, I have a question about the first one. In that it's supporting the process, and is that going to be it? For some reason, to me, it doesn't seem in quite the same category as like doing the actual activities that some of these other things require.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I'm not understanding what support means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, eventually what will happen is, if we continue to move this process forward, creating a technical advisory committee and parceling it out, there'll be some questions for council to answer or work through as far as some policy decisions on where funds are spent. And that would be this group looking through that, vetting it, and then supporting it and adding comments as that moves forward, and being the advocacy arm for the city, so for the Parks Department. So eventually there'll be some funds that are talked about there. So did I answer your question, Peck?
Yes, I mean,
okay.
So eventually there will be implementation funds. It's almost, to me, it almost seems like the ones that have funding and are funded are kind of ready to be implemented, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We could parcel this out. It's already kind of a goal for ours, so that's a good point. So I could remove this from the list and we could grab 2 more.
I agree with that. I think that by making that one of our goals, we pretty much set up a priority at that point. Even though we haven't necessarily attached funding to it, we are supporting that goal.
Okay. Do we want to make Meinig one of our priorities that we work towards?
I would be comfortable with that.
I'm on board with that.
Again, protecting the investment there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are 4 from staff, and we can talk about this. Those are 4 great projects that we could work towards. This is obviously an iterative document, so if we get funding and move forward with these 4 projects, we've got ranked land acquisition, so we can keep an eye out for that and look at that as we move through this year. Are there any other, do we want to pull any of those other ones to a top priority? Otherwise, as a staff, we'll start working on the green ones.
I think one thing you want to keep in mind, Rochelle, is that every one of those projects is going to have its own idiosyncrasies and timelines. And sometimes, you know, we can say this is our we're going to do this first and second and third and so on. But the reality is sometimes different projects, for whatever reason, move along a little bit faster than other projects. And sometimes that means that, you know, project, you know, a 3rd tier project may jump up a little bit as far as priorities for a variety of reasons. And so I just think we need to maintain a little bit of flexibility there too.
Yeah, thank you, Don, for that.
Yeah, I'd be really curious about like timeline for some of these as you kind of jump into it, then seeing where the flexibility is. Because we could see something else pop in and say, hey, we're either too fast or this one's way too slow, and we may be able to flex. So I think that maybe even bringing it back for discussion as you kind of work through it and you're getting us involved in some of these as you go, kind of understanding timeline along the way over the months may be helpful to then say, hey, where are you at in these projects? And then is this still the priority kind of going forward? I'd be curious.
That's a great idea, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're hoping that that's also part of this this process too. Is it's the impetus is on staff as well to set these as agenda items with Dawn to make sure that we're keeping the board updated on what we're working on, how's the funding strategies going, where are we at with it. You know, has number 6 jumped to the front kind of thing. So yeah, definitely. Thank you, Alex. We'll definitely keep the board updated as we move forward. Does this
give you adequate feedback, Rochelle?
It does. Thank you. Yeah. Is there any other final thoughts before we close out our goal setting portion?
I am comfortable with what we've done. I just want to make sure that we've given you everything that you need.
You have. Thank you. Yeah, this is very helpful.
Okay. All righty then. Should we move on to hybrid meetings?
Yes. So this Friday, Sarah and I will be training here at the center to do hybrid meetings where we can continue to do meetings in Zoom and in person. And so I'll turn it over to the group to discuss, you know, if we're comfortable meeting in person, we continue with hybrid. But yeah, I think March will be our first meeting to maybe get back together again. And if you want to, you can meet in Zoom. Dawn, do you have any thoughts about that, or do we support that? And
I'm comfortable, personally, I'm comfortable with it, but I know that everybody has their own comfort level. And I think that by giving everybody the option of you can either come into the meeting or you can Zoom into the meeting works out well. I know in Oregon City, you guys did that with council meetings or commission meetings in Oregon City. And I think that worked out pretty well. I know that there's other jurisdictions that have done that too. And while they're a little, I don't want to say weird at first, but they're just a little bit weird at first. Just because everybody's, again, learning a new system for how they do business. But I think that once everybody gets their feet underneath it, it's a great step to getting everybody back in the room together at the same time. And I think that will help help our meeting efficiencies too. What's everybody else's feelings on meeting in person?
I would like to meet you guys face to face, so at least one time would be nice.
I'm kind of both ways. Wednesdays are just really bad days for me.
I would like the opportunity to meet in person, and for me with my summer schedule, although I'm actually going to miss March's meeting, and I've already told Sarah that, but with my summer schedule, I travel a lot for work, and while I can make a virtual meeting almost like probably 90% of the time while traveling, I'm not obviously going to be able to make an in-person. So it would be nice to be able to have that hybrid option so that I can call in. Even calling in, would be fine.
Like the option either way. So I'll have the opportunity of coming in, but like David, Wednesdays are gonna get crazy for me in the near future. So having the call-in Zoom option is great. So, and I've done hybrid meetings and they are very awkward sometimes, but they work. So it's great. Love the option.
Will, do you have an opinion?
I like the flexibility of both, but I really look forward to meeting y'all in person.
That'd be nice. Okay, well, let's see what happens in March, shall we?
Okay. Perfect.
Would that be at the community center?
Yes, it'd be here. Yep, upstairs in the auditorium.
Good, a little bit bigger space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
Okay.
Well, I look forward to that. Let's go back to item 6.1 before we move into old business. Item 6.1 is election of officers. We've talked about this fairly recently. I believe the traditional time that we elect officers is in June. Correct?
That's correct. Yep. Jim.
Okay. So we do have in just a few months, we will be doing an election of officers. Currently, I'm the chair. I think we had a volunteer for the secretary position, did we not?
I volunteer to do that.
Okay. And then I think we have a couple of people who have volunteered to be vice chair. I know that Alex had mentioned it, and I believe David had mentioned it at the last meeting also.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And David, were you still interested in doing that too?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, we only have one of those positions, not two. So I think we would need to do an election. How does the group feel? Do you want to do that now? Do you want to do that at the next meeting? Give everybody a chance to kind of wrap their heads around it a little bit, or do you want to just do everything all at once in June?
Either way. I have no preference.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, if I get a vote on this, or
I was gonna say it's really quiet, so I'm like, I don't think anybody has strong objections either way.
No, I don't think so either. And I would be fine with co-vice chairs also. So I am totally open to however it works.
I'm sure David and I could work together.
Everybody else feel comfortable with that? David, are you comfortable with that?
I'm more than comfortable with that. Yes.
All righty. Rochelle, would you be comfortable with that?
Yes, absolutely.
And Lori, how does that fit into your world? Oh, I see a thumb up, and you haven't had any 911 calls, so that's a good thing. Sorry, hope I didn't jinx it for you. Okay, with that, then why don't we go ahead and operate under that model until June?
If I'm up all night, Don, I'm going to blame you.
Yeah, I know it. And I absolutely deserve the blame on that one. I don't see any old business staff updates. Rochelle, do you have any updates for us?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make it quick because you guys let me drone on for a while, but just wanted to celebrate Tiana really quick. She did get into a leadership academy through Oregon Recreation Parks Association. That's in partnership. Yeah, it's wonderful, in partnership with Portland State University. And it's a 6-month program where she'll be doing a capstone at the end of the leadership program. And not only was it wonderful she got into it, but her budget prowess, she received a scholarship in the amount of $500 for the program. So all around, just really wanted to celebrate Tiana. So very, very exciting. So.
Yay.
Hey, and then when we meet in person, you can hear people clap for real.
There we go.
So, and then we are doing a council goal setting March 5th. So that is coming up. So staff is preparing for that. Obviously, as we discussed, the community campus is going to be quite a big topic for that. So we'll keep the Parks Board updated on how that goes. And then we are in the midst of hiring 2 positions currently, and we're starting those interviews next week. One is for the Senior Center Community Center Manager position, and the other one is for the Executive Assistant position. So we are working as staff, getting up to full swing. We can't wait to open up the facility again with programs and services, and yes, come out of the endemic, if you will, and be fully staffed. So, and then again, mentioning something that the department's been working on and Tiana's been the lead on, is we have implemented and we are using a work order asset management software. And it went into effect this week. And I am astounded at how busy and wonderfully busy the Parks Department is with facilities and parks. And I have 5 more work orders I'm going to put in today. So we're excited. We will, I announced it to the department head meeting yesterday, and we'll be rolling it out citywide for other people to submit work orders for the parks team, who they're also responsible for facilities. So we're really looking forward to that. I'm excited to report to this group on some of the outcomes. It's going to help us study time management and where we're spending our time, what parks are high maintenance, where are our assets, and so we're just really, really looking forward to that. So, and this is a transition to Sarah, but her and her crew are busy planning for the summer and including special events and programs, but I'll toss it over to Sarah to do a quick update. And there you go, Sarah.
Oh, there we go. I muted and unmuted myself a couple times, so here we go. Yeah, so on the recreation special event side, we're busy trying to get back up to full programming, full speed for summer 2022. Lori, that includes softball, so start getting your team together. And yeah, so we're excited to be programming again actively, and the community is really ready, and that was evidenced by, took less than 24 hours to fill our kinder dance classes a couple weeks ago, so that was some kind of record. I attended a cost recovery masterclass thanks to Rochelle. She hooked me up with that. It's super interesting, really great. Looking forward to that process. I think we're gonna take a really good hard look at things, and that's going to be a real plus for the community. So looking forward to that. As far as programming goes, those of you that live over by Bornstead, you're going to see a lot of camps over there this summer again. So heads up there.
Good.
I wanted to follow up at the last meeting. We were looking at the website, and one of the things that you mentioned was the sort of inadequacy of the Tickle Creek Trail map. And Will and I had a chance to talk, and we both had looked at the All Trails website. There's a really great interactive map there for Tickle Creek Trail. And at some point, we're going to be able to link from our website to All Trails so that people will have just immediate access to it. Right now, there's a security issue, and so they're working through that. It's not just for that page or that particular issue, but they're working through some things. As soon as that is cleaned up, you're going to see that link. In the meantime, I wanted to really thank City Staff Thomas Fisher. He has been working on a short-term solution, a PDF map that will be a lot clearer about where you get on and off the trail, have street names to reference. So there'll be something there shortly that you'll see on the website. I just wanted to know we followed up on that and going to improve on that, because when I went in there and looked at the map, it is really hard to figure out where that trail goes and where you get on and off. So we're going to fix that. Friendly reminder, I'm not going to call anybody out tonight, but I'm still waiting on a few code of conduct forms. You could get those to me by early next week. It would be really great to check that off my list. So help me out, get those to me. If you got an email from me this week, you know who you are. So get that to me if you wouldn't mind. Other than that, with some, I think we talked about this before. There's some repairs going on in the community garden, ongoing repairs. Oh, thank you, Dawn. Thank you. That's the one. Called himself out. So there are repairs going on over there if you have a garden bed. If anybody's asking you about that process for renting a bed, I just wanted to update the board in case you're out and about. Letters will go out sometime next week to existing gardeners. They'll have about a month to renew their beds. Once that process is done, then the remaining beds will be available for new gardeners. So if you're walking around Bornstead and people have questions, they should start looking about the middle of March for opportunities to pick up any available beds in the community garden.
Awesome. I get a lot of questions about that.
I know.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks. That's all I have tonight.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Sarah, I'm going to text you a picture of this thing so I can check it off my list.
I have the technology to make that work.
There we go. All righty. Anything else for the good of the order? Nothing. All right. Well, then I adjourn this meeting.
What? Hold on a second, Don.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
I was trying to get my buttons pushed. So I stumbled across something the last week or so that kind of disturbed me, and I'm not going to mention names just simply because it's not necessary. But we need to make sure that and I know we can't control what people say or do, but we need to make sure that city representatives and park board members represent the city in all legal and lawful activities within the parks and the trails, and don't talk bad about other organizations or other activities that are happening within the parks and the trails. The post that I came across, it really was not a pleasant post, especially directed towards some of our more community action programs.
Thank you, well, David, for that. I think that's really kind of in line with what Sarah was referring to on the code of conduct certification. I think we all have just a basic responsibility to represent the community and to represent our department in its best light. I think sometimes we forget things or get carried away with things. And we just got to kind of keep that in mind. Thank you for bringing that up.